Hello, good morning. My name is Abel Jaime. And to start, I would like to speak a little bit about the context of where we are implementing this project in Mexico. And the project is implemented in Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca. It is considered to be one of the states that has a higher number of biodiversity. It's divided into 8 regions, and we are going to be working as a point of reference in La Mixteca region. Why? This region of La Mixteca is the one that contains the necessary characteristics for the project. And for starters, it is the region that has a temperate climate or semi-cold weather. That's where we're going to be working. Additionally, the fauna is also interesting, and there we have conifers forest, and it's a type of spinous forest. And this is what we can see in some areas of the region. We have pine, semi-desertic areas. This is one of the areas also that has been affected by erosion. So this is one of the conditions that have helped us, that we need to help. And as persons, we have a great biodiversity of ethnic groups. In the case of La Mixteca, we have a great amount of Mixteco population with different variables in their languages that have been developed. So this is a little bit of what we can say about biodiversity. Then this generates a whole structure. I want to show you some pictures of what we can show throughout, we can find throughout the year in the territory. As you can observe here, these are different conditions, mountains. And part of what is happening here in the region of La Mixteca is that in this area, you can find the node. This is a geographical formation in, it is one of the youngest formations, recent creation, but these type of formations promotes erosion. And aside from that, strong deforestation of the different areas by the different communities that have settled in them. And so we have these, this is the landscape that we have eroded. The soil is red and they range up to purple colors in some, and there are also whitish area and green area. So we have different types of soils. So this is a little bit of what we have in terms of the area in which we are working and what we face. And now, in the case of the systems, production systems and the models, we have been working basically in an agricultural system and crop livestock, combine using different conditions of the geography. We're going to have different management in agricultural production and animal production and livestock. So we're going to see that in the flatlands. There's a way of using equipment and machinery, and then equipment is found there, and harvesters, threshers. That is the area that has higher use of technology. Then we can find in small areas the so, and then in the mountain ranges and in the mountains, we are going to have the manual planting and the animal being used. And it's also important to indicate that there you can see where they plant in the land sites. That's the area of cajete type. They place in a type of seed that allows for germination with uh, low-term residual conservation. Let's say their moisture is at a, well, it maintains the moisture at 50 centimeters. It's going to take 2 or 3 months to grow once the rainy cycle starts. We have another method that is very used in certain areas. This is amabordo. In this case, we use much the downfalls from the mountain to the mountain sides, and that is where we use this type of lama gorda. So we use the landslide that then is used for the production. And then a little bit of rainfall from 460 millimeters a year. and it's a cold area from 400 to 650 cold, from 0 to 18, sometimes below the 18 degrees. In the summer, ranges from 12 to 30. That would be in the middle part of the day. These are the conditions. And about the production systems, we can find that this is corn production throughout the region. And in the areas of the plains and the mountains, we can find some wheat, different improved varieties, some of the original or native varieties that were brought by the Franciscans during the conquest are still found there. And then there are also beans, black beans in an area of the region, and in certain regions, the red beans, but the prevalence is black beans. In the case of corn or maize, there's a great relationship or proportion about the indigenous and the hybrid. They mostly work in the other regions with the indigenous or the native forms. And then that's how we work, and this is how we work with them. And in terms of the seeds, something that is respected in Oaxaca is the use of the seed that is dependent on what the producers allow. And in agricultural, we're going to have more bovine production in the lower sections. There's a great presence of caprine and bovine throughout the region, let's say. So then we're going to have bovine and caprine production, and then goats. That's basically the way they can, well, they naturally can live in this area. This is something that we observe in this region. And in terms of our work, we're working with producers from the ejido production or the common lands, and in a small proportion with small plot owners. This is what we have, the sites of the production units, 2,000 square meters to the 2 or 3 hectares. Producers have different plots in different places where they work, and this is what we normally find. On average in the region, they are about 2 hectares average. We have the extremes, the opposite. Some might have 5 or 6 or up to 10. And then there are some that might only have half a hectare or 1 hectare. So this is the poles that we might find. So this is what we find. This is the topic about the agricultural system with which we're working. And so some of the pictures that you can observe, the plains, and you can see the use of technology, mechanical technology. We observe the different activities with larger plots. This is in the plainlands, and this type of plots close to the mountain sides. And here you can find in certain places that the use of the techniques of landslides used. They have natural fertilization of the crop, and this is the conventional type of management. And here we have the mountainside. We see the slopes, and we can also work in these sites up here. We can find different plots in certain parts of the year. So this is a bit of the landscape that we observe in the Mixteca region. And then now concentrating in the topic of what we have been working on. All right, then. So let's remember that research and innovation are truly very much connected. Frequently, they are related. So then that allows us to see that research does not generate innovation, and it's not going to necessarily be adapted, and it's not going to lead to scaling. This is something that is built, it's formed by the relationships. This is what we're going to be presenting in the process that we have had and some of the first steps that we have had or that we have taken. So I want to remind you a little bit when we're speaking about how we want the scaling of innovation, we need first to find that we need to generate an interactive space for adoption and adaptation of the technology or of the innovation so that we can make progress. And the actor has to have this will of innovating. And then considering that innovation is going to have certain ingredients that are important, first of all, this is a new type of productivity. It's a new technology. It's going to promote changes. It is an improvement, but it generates changes. This is going to generate resistance. As humans, we're not so used to adapting to change. This is something that we have to mention and consider. We must be clear that there's a paradigm between innovation and the conventional forms. So this is what we manage so that we can truly then be able to see that this is going to help us. And based on this, then, what we can observe here is that what we have done in the state of Oaxaca, in Mexico, in order to implement these type of projects, what we have done is that we have developed an intervention model that is based or is named hubs, or it's based on the hub model, looking for interaction between the actors and the relationships with the different producers, and how then this can allow for a catalytic process that accelerates adoption and adaptation, then allows the knowledge to be taken to other parts. There's knowledge that is being formed and it's being managed, and that then will result in the fact that the population of this area will use the innovation based on this adapting and adopting model. Then we have worked with different places. We can show the different forms in which it is adapted through research. And for this, we need to have applied research directly on out in the fields. We work with research, middle and long-term in the Mixteco region with innovation modules that allow us to make side-by-side comparisons. With this, we can generate a greater amount of use of these concepts of the innovation in the producers of the regions through extension areas or impact areas, which are the result of the impact that these type of producers have, the type of research in the region. So the relationship between the producer and the researcher is something very interesting. So then that is why that it is important to understand the relationships that exist in the territory, the different actors and stakeholders. And from there, we have mapped these to see how we can promote scaling. So first of all, we have to understand that there's a government, a state government, and municipal government. They have public policies that are being implemented in the territory. There are civil association organizations that are promoted participative integration. And there is the academia as well, participating at a higher level, and that are trying to generate or form agents of change. We have a series of actors that have been derived to vendors in the region, and they are generating these schemes in the value chain in the region of the Mixteco. And lastly, some of the actors that we have identified and with whom we were able to work, like Pro Familia, Pueblo del Tigre, the Metropolitan University Fondo para la Paz NGO, another organization of producers, the Ejido Producers in IFEPA, that is the National Institute of Pecuary Functions in Mexico. So these are the actors that we're working with. These are the elements that we have identified. And let's understand a little bit the importance of how these public policy can help us to extend this and take it farther. And from there, what we have been working on is in the proposal of the innovation, these systems that we have in the state, and how it is that this type of menu then, if you will, allow us to adapt to each condition, to each region. And with this, then we can provide a solution to the producers. And so in this way, in terms of research, we have been able to work with some mixes of forages. We're working with cereals and leguminous. And then we have also worked in comparing them with forage to see where we can have more productivity. We found other alternatives. We can have this type of mixing, or this is a production system that we have used. And from there, we have been working out in the field with the producers. These allows us to see that we can have corn production and we can plant these type of forages in between the furrows that allow us to promote different activities in the system. This allows us higher nutritional quality forage, and on the other hand, we reduce the pressure that we exert on the corn to use it more as a coverage, a vegetable natural coverage we can generate an impact then in the region for water collection and the protection of the soil. And then we also have these options. We're working on mixes, forage mixes here, for example. This is oat and iticale. And here we can find how these crops that need less amount of water allow us to have a better result. Then that opens the way to collect the water more appropriately with certain conditions that allows us to have a better production. And then we can have controlled grassland with the mixes of forages. We can have animal food or animal feed much favorable than only if we were doing stubble grazing as is normally done. This type of innovation then what allows us to do is to reaffirm that the learning process is an interactive process generated from work, from doing things, from building in a participative way with the producers. And in this way, we can have a greater use of capacities and apply the scaling.
Vamos a pasar a las
For time
conclusiones.
constraints, we're going to move on to the conclusions.
Un segundo.
Just a moment. And with this, some comments that we can have is that we need to develop connections. It's not possible to just think about this scaling process without forming or building a network, without building connections among people. This is an important part of the scaling process. Innovation has to be adapted through the needs of the producers. And that is why the model allows us or has demonstrated that this model allows us to adapt innovation according to their needs and to maintain the vision of having a menu that adapts and that this technology can adapt into different considerations. And the impact then will be stronger if we will be scaled up if we have these adaptable models to the extent that we use innovation that can be adapted, attached and detached, and then complement. That is how the producers are going to accept it better. And lastly, horizontal scaling is a good beginning. We always have to keep in mind that the paradigm of scaling, industrial scaling is present. We always want to have more and more and more. And this, we do not know how good or simple it is going to be to implement this.